share some examples of what was successful for them in oh, hold on, we have 2 more people coming in. They're going to share some suggestions of what was successful for them in the spring, but really what's also important is hearing from everybody. We definitely heard in the spring that people wanted more opportunity to speak with others throughout the corporation that do the same job as them. So you are welcome to show yourself or not show yourself with your pictures. And if you have something to share, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to, you know, if they ask something or whatever, feel free to speak out. You might want to put yourself on mute in case there's some random noise that you don't expect happening. We are excited to have you all here. And it seems like there's a couple more people coming in a little bit, so that's exciting. Miranda teaches Bridges at Highland Park, and Jackie teaches inclusion at Lakeview. Okay, so we still have a few more. Oh gosh, maybe I should have waited to do my little spiel.
It's all right. We have it as well in our slideshow.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, so
We got you.
you guys are popular. All right, we have 2 more coming up. All right. It is 3:01. I'll just keep letting people in if they come. So I will turn it over to Miranda and Jackie. Thank you everyone for coming.
All right, let me get our presentation all pulled up for us here. All right. So my name's Miranda, and as she said previously, for those of you that just joined us, I am a Bridges to Success teacher in grades 3 through 6 at Highland Park.
And I'm Jackie Clay here. I'm inclusion 4 through 6 at Lakeview. We're excited to have you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. So just as a reminder for Zoom, we want to make sure that our microphones are muted and that we're cautious of background noises and staying on task. We want to limit distractions as much as possible, and feel free to either raise your hand or ask questions in the chat box, or as Stacy said, just kind of call them out as we ask. We're going to have some different times for feedback as well. Just as a reminder, oops, I don't think I ended up sharing my audio there, Jackie, for that. So sorry about that, but we just want to remember not to be like,
where's the sound?
Dave,
I can't.
your microphone, it's not on.
Click on the button with the picture of the microphone.
Every time a villain calls in, this happens.
Hello? Hello? Well, now we can hear
annoying.
you, but we cannot see you.
Every time.
That's like talking to my parents.
just a little bit of humor for you.
Okay, so like Stacy said, this is going to be a collaborative conversation. It's not just about us. We know that you guys have done some amazing things as well. So we're hoping during this presentation that with math learning resources, English language arts, social skills and SEL, Google Drive, Canvas, parent supports, and technology supports. Okay, so we're going to start off with the math learning resources. So all of the things that we're going to show you with the resources are things that can be plugged in onto your Canvas as an extra tool to help with your teaching. The first thing that we used that was really helpful was the Bridges materials. We're all familiar with that. It's the same Bridges materials that we teach when we're at school. Within the Bridges materials, you have all the grade level sets information, everything that you need for that, as well as the Bridges sets. So when I was starting with the e-learning in March, I was able to take the Bridges intervention sets materials and take some of that stuff to continue on with what I was already teaching the students, because I was using the Bridges intervention sets in my small groups for inclusion.
So another great thing that we did at our school was the use of choice boards. And so choice boards can be based off of one standard or multiple standards. And so this was an example of a last week of school choice board that we made as a team in 4th grade. And so we picked multiple standards in this. So you can see like there's graphing, there's rounding, there's even writing your own word problems. but students got to choose one option each day and post it in their assignments. And then after that, they picked a new one for the next day. So it offered some motivation and choice for them so that they wanted to do the work and they felt like they had power in what they were doing. And it also gave them time to be creative with their thinking and show their different ways of learning.
Okay, so along with that, there's a lot of online resources that we can use. We have
Kind of dry. Kind of dry.
We have we have Khan Academy, which is all about videos and practice with the instant feedback. ISL, which is once again practice with immediate feedback. The Maya Academy learning channel, vocabulary, and number rocks are all resources videos that would help teach math concepts. Hey guys, if we wouldn't mind making sure we're all on mute so everyone can hear. Thank you so much. So there we go. Can you, hopefully we're good. Are we good? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Good job. Yep, Jackie, you're good.
Okay, we have the Mia Academy Learning Channel, vocabulary, as well as the Number Rock videos. They're all videos based off of math concepts. And then Math Playground, which is a fun way to practice skills with their games. Okay, so for English Language Arts learning resources, the things that we found that was helpful was the Benchmark Universe. Once again, we're all familiar with Benchmark. It was what we were using. But in Benchmark Universe, there's multiple ways that you can actually use it. If you go to the website, you go into the Benchmark Universe and pull it up. We're just showing you guys so you can see exactly. I'm sure you guys have looked at this at one time or another. So we go to the interactive teaching resources. And as you can see, it has everything you need for on grade level materials, as well as a small group reading. So I use the small group reading materials the most. But you know, small group reading materials came in that baggie. It had everything that the baggie had within it. So I was able to, you know, let's say we do unit 1 asking questions. There's within that you have the actual book that is online that you can actually customize so that you can put notes in there, you can change the speed of how you read. There's all these different cool options to customize it for your students to read, as well as there's the teacher guide. And I ended up printing off the teacher guide when I was doing it. It was easier for me to kind of go with the flow with that. Then, as you can see here with like our solar system, the CTDR is actually the leveled questions for each chapter. And I would take those questions and I would make them a quiz. And you'll see that later on into Canvas, how quizzes are made. But it was a really easy way to use the resources we have, but to implement it in an e-learning type way. The ORR is actually the oral reading fluency. So if you have a student with a fluency goal, or if you're working on fluency with them, that has the fluency, all the fluency text that you would need to go along with this text.
I just wanted to point out the Fountas and Pinnell guided reading books are available online also, because that we won't have access, I don't believe, to Benchmark, but Fountas and Pinnell has their guided reading books, and you access them all actually through Canvas to begin with, so it'll be easy to do that.
Perfect. So we'll all learn together how to use Fountas and Pinnell stuff online, but this is, you know, same difference. At least we'll have the resources where we can use them at our fingertips.
And then for me, I had students at various different levels, and some of my materials was whole group and some of my materials was individualized. And what I did was I would take like the posters, or in the case of Fountas Pinnell's, like the different books that we would have, and I would actually pull up the posters, like the Black Line Master, and have it printed off. And my students I would record myself like reading it and then talking about the different teaching points and working through filling out those question boxes at the bottom of it. And then each day we would go over the previous independent practice that we had each student doing.
Okay, so once again, we're trying to fill our toolboxes with more materials. What things we can be using to implement Canvas to help with our teaching. Some other things that we used, ReadWorks was a great resource. I'm sure we're all familiar with it, but just in case we're not, ReadWorks is a great way to look up Lexiles and basically give you questions. It's a good way to do comprehension and really, it's just a good resource to have. And
so some other options too are, again, some of those choice boards. This one was actually created by our instructional coach for us to use at the 4th grade level, and it had 6 choices. So it shows you some flexibility. And this was for like the oral reading fluency. And it was great for our students. They had many different types of text to engage in and questions to answer. And then some other great resources that I found that gave us online reading passages based off of Lexile and even grade level standards was News ELA and Common Lit. And the great things about these 2 resources is that it did provide questions for you already, like multiple choice questions that you could plug into a Canvas quiz or into an assignment on the Canvas. And then it also had discussion and writing prompts for each one. So what I would do is I would plug each of these in, like these questions, as multiple choice questions. And then I would also give that short answer for my students to still continue practicing.
we'll show you an example of that later on while we're in Canvas.
Thanks, Jackie. And then being a Bridges teacher, I had to focus a lot on social skills too, because that's what my students' IEP goals were on. So some of the resources that we used were different read aloud books that I had brought home with me at the start of this, and my staff would read or I would read these books, and we'd have discussions on Canvas, on discussion boards, or students would answer questions and assignments or quizzes. We also used YouTube videos of books. Julia Cook was doing an awesome job of posting her reading her own books, and other authors were doing the same. So we would use those to talk about different skills. Another great tool was Everyday Speech, and Everyday Speech was a free subscription for 30 days. And then after that it charged, I don't remember the exact cost. We just went with the 30 days, and we were able to find a lot of the videos actually on YouTube still. But the great thing about it is it gave skill steps very similar to like our well-managed school steps, if you're familiar with those in your schools. And it provided students with real life models and social skills in action, both the expected behavior and the unexpected behavior. So it gave students the opportunity to point out like what the skill step that the student wasn't following and what skill steps that they were, which led to some great discussions for us. And then also Everyday Speech included some worksheets in that subscription that went along with what was going on in the videos.
Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of time to hear what you guys have done. Those, like I said, those were just some of the things that we use, some of the resources that we were able to use to plug into Canvas to help us. But I know you guys probably have a ton of things, and I don't know about you guys, but the more information, the more resources I have, the more comfortable I feel about things. So we're going to do it's called a Mentimeter, which is also maybe something you could use within Canvas to get responses from your students. It might be a fun way to do it if you have a class going on or a small group. But we're actually going to go ahead and do a Mentimeter right now. And basically, we're going to ask you guys to give us 3 things, 3 resources, or 3 activities, or 3 different types of ways that you were able to use Canvas or some kind of resource to help you during e-learning. All you have to do is in the search menti.com in the URL, and or you can use your BART scan code, or this, what is it, the scan
QR code reader.
Yep, QR code reader. Thank you. And you can either scan it or you can type it in the URL, and the code would be 36916. So we're going to give you guys some time to plug in things that were helpful to you, and this is going to kind of start our discussion as you guys did. So go ahead right now, if you wouldn't mind, plug in menti.com or scan it and put in the code and write the 3 things that you'd like to share.
I just want to say while y'all are doing that, if you didn't see the email from Tim Pritchett, we will be using Microsoft Teams coming up, and one of the things that's included in that is polling. So you won't even have to create it somewhere else if you don't want to. Although I don't know, Mentimeter does some cool things, so I don't know if it's, you know, up to par, but just excitement there.
I'll give you all a few more moments to get that code in, and then I'll start pulling up the results that give us live feed of it.
All right, let's see. The results are in. So ReadWorks, class meetings, videos of read alouds, video, good. So I definitely think video responses from social studies. A lot of people use ReadWorks, that's good. There's some things that are new to me that I would definitely like to hear more about. What about the Screencastify? Who put on the Screencastify? Would someone like to maybe explain a little bit more what that is?
I'm curious about that as well.
Yeah, that was me. It's Holly Davis. I used Screencastify. It's actually a Google Chrome extension.
Okay.
And it's really easy to use. You can have up any screen you want. I used it with math in particular. 6th grade math. I would give the lesson using Screencastify where I'm showing them the work as I'm speaking, and you can either have a little video of you down in the corner or just voiceover. And so what I would do is I would go through the lesson with them, then send them to do work independently, and then the next link in Canvas for them would be for them to go and check their answer. So it'd be another Screencastify of me actually working through the problems.
That's
So
awesome.
Video recordings of yourself, but it's nice. It has drawing tools. I don't know. I used it for almost everything.
That's awesome.
Great
Sharing.
resource. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to share that really worked well for them? The more the merrier, because like I said, we're just trying to build our tool belts here. Anyone?
One other thing I did, sorry,
No, go
was
for it.
I teach E&L, so I always put voice of me reading the directions. And even in some classes, kids see a lot of directions, they're not going to read them. So I always, put directions on there where I read the directions to them.
You are not alone in that. I did the same thing.
That's a great resource for sure. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so another part of there's a lot of different things that you can implement and put onto Canvas. I use Google Drive a lot. One of the things that I liked was the Google Sheets. It's a spot where you can easily put in your information. It's all on one sheet. It's in one spot. I made a folder with all of my different caseload contacts, anything that had to do with parents. I did surveys and I did a whole plethora of things. It was all in one spot on my Google Drive for e-learning. It was just easy. So for the Google Sheets, I just did that's where I compile all of my contact information, like the student name, parent name, phone number, email. That was all in one spot.
And then I created a Google Sheet that myself and my paras had access to, and it was to log all of our contacts with students and family. So my paras mainly just met with our students, but we would document the day, the time. If it was just the student that was popping up on Google Meets, then we would put the student's initials in and say how the mode of contact happened, who was involved, and we'd also give a short description of what either the student needed help with or what questions that the families had. For myself, like I was calling families, so I was putting descriptions of what we discussed, and it was just a quick way for us to have it all in one place for our families.
Another really great resource on Google Drive is the Google Forms. Similar to what Miranda did, I instead made a contact. So anytime I had contact with the parents or the students, I would then fill out I always had this contact form up and ready to go. So whenever I got an email or something, all I would have to do is write in the family or the group name. What was I able to do? Did I talk to the parent? Did I discuss, hold a small group instruction? How was the contact made was another thing. So phone, email, Zoom, Canvas, Google Meet. What was the contact about? And then I would just have everything compiled into an Excel. So once you have your responses, you can see it all either just like that. It pulls up in your Google Sheets. It gives a timestamp. It gives the family or the group. Everything is in one spot. And I was easily able to see what contacts I made, especially with students that we were really trying hard to get in contact with, just to show like how often and when I did. It was easy because it was right there for me. I just plugged it in. It was just a couple quick clicks and I was done instead of typing out a whole bunch of stuff. So that was one way that I used it. And then I also used Google Forms for parent surveys. I found that parent surveys was a huge thing for me. This is just an example. At the very beginning of the year, or beginning of e-learning, we had to ask the parents all these different questions. I call each family personally, one-on-one, and as I talked to them, I was able to fill in all of these different questions. And I did that for everyone on my caseload. And once again, these were the questions that the district wanted us to ask and get the answers for our family. So once I answered all the questions from my parents, then once again, it compiled everything into one spot. So if there was a spot Canvas, it then allowed me to go through and email and or call the parent back to then give one-on-one instruction on what they needed help with. And so that was really helpful. I didn't just do parent surveys for that. I did surveys for everything, just to always have an understanding of how parents felt with how instruction was going, how they were feeling. It was just a really good way to stay in contact with them. And then lastly, assignment questions. I sometimes made assignments on there just for fun and just plugged the URL into Canvas. You can also do this with quizzes. You can do this with the discussion board, but sometimes I just mixed it up and did it on. In the beginning, Google was very familiar with me, so I ended up doing this. But like I said, this was a trial in the beginning of the year, during the beginning of e-learning, just to make sure like they were learning how to use things. So Google Drive was a great resource during that time. Okay, so we're getting into the big picture here. This is Canvas. This is the thing that we're all, we've learned. Really, we probably have a good handle on it, but how else can we use it? Let's see if there's something that maybe new on there that we haven't used or we're not as familiar with. So obviously, we have the announcements and the discussions. Announcements were really big for me because I did an announcement every single morning to my students. I knew they were all getting it. And then allowed anyone in that group, so any of the paras or the teachers were able to get that, and even the principal was able to get those announcements as well. And so that allowed me to stay in contact with the students and keep them updated with everything that was going on. And sometimes we had a fun event going on. Sometimes we had a change of time. So it's just a nice little extra, a nice thing to have there. Discussions is the same thing. You can use it for staying in touch, just throwing out, what's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Sometimes it's how I got the kids to get on Canvas, because, you know, sometimes it was hard for me to get some of my students in there. But if I posted something fun or funny that they could respond to, I could pull them on and keep them on for academics. So I use a discussion for both academics as well as staying in touch with the students.
And then I heavily relied on discussion boards. It was common for us to do restorative practice circles in the morning. So they were kind of like community circles that we would have and have questions and discussions on in the classroom. So it was something that the students were very familiar with. And so I continued that on into our Canvas classroom. So we'd post questions and do check-ins like Jackie said, but then we'd also have like little bits of humor that we'd share with one another, and like students could respond to each other. All of us staff would respond to the posts that the students had put on there, and even our principal got in on it as well at certain times to post how he was feeling and show kids that he was still part of the community as well.
So something that was really important on my Canvas was recorded lessons. I used Google Meets. I did small groups. So I had several different groups that my kids were in the beginning assigned to. So the parents were, every morning I'd send a parent email, and the parent email would have all the information needed for how to do something, or tips as to how they can help their students. Another thing that I also added was, may I record our lessons? And when I was on Google Meets, it's really important that I was recording those lessons, because not all the parents could get their child on at the same time. I held different sessions of goals that I was teaching for students, and I held them at different times. So if the student and the parent were unable to come to that meeting, then they would have the recorded lessons on Canvas so that they could click, and all of the materials and all the resources were there along with the recorded lessons, so they weren't missing anything. But of course I asked for permission first. That was the big thing.
And then in contrast to what Jackie did, I pre-recorded all of my teaching lessons. So I did more of a going over the teaching point and doing practice problems that the students could go back and refer to at any point in time. And I pre-recorded that either with my iPad or my laptop. Sometimes I'd use Zoom on my own time to where students could still see my face and see what I was working on as well. And so that kind of like with the benchmark materials, I'd have my face up so they could still see a familiar face, but then they were still seeing all the content as well. And I would post those online because my families weren't ready for a set schedule. We were all in new times, and so it was easier for them to not have a designated time to pop in. We tried it. It didn't really work for our families. It's something that it could work in the future. So I just recorded lessons and posted them into each of the assignments or the quizzes for my students to view at their own time. And then I also included instructions like with video on how to access like the materials. So how to access their assignments and how to access Google Meets for my family. So not only that the family could have it for their resources, but also the student had it.
Okay, so accommodations. We had, within Canvas, we made sure that we accommodate our students as much as possible. Some of the ways that we did that was we made sure that there was multiple modes for students to present their learning. So that could be through videos, voice recording, pictures of their assignments and work, typing into the actual Canvas, as well as Google submissions. If there was something that had lengthy instructions, like we were all discussing earlier, or read alouds, then we would video. A good way to help with accommodations is to video ourselves doing those things. We also had links to videos that were provided in assignments and quizzes for students to refer back to That was made available on Canvas so that the students would be able to go back and reread or re-listen to something to help them with an assignment. And then a big thing that we both talked about, Miranda and I both agreed that we allowed multiple attempts on assignments and quizzes. So maybe they didn't do something perfect. We were able to kind of comment, let them reteach it, or help them better understand what our expectations are, and then give them another opportunity to get that assignment in.
Some other great functionalities of Canvas was the modules, and the way that I like to describe it, that's just a fancy name for a file folder on your computer. It's basically that folder where you can compile a whole day's worth of work, or you can categorize things a certain way. So for me, I did it based off of my students' grade levels and based off of their individual needs. And it was a great way for them to just click the little file folder and it opened, and then it had all their assignments listed in there. And then another great thing is, oops, sorry, my computer decided to jump ahead, was the new quizzes. So that's something I'm going to show you here when we get onto our Canvas pages about how to access and how to do it, because they have more functionality than the other quizzes that they have on Canvas. And it's very similar to the CFAs and CSAs that we got provided to us on Canvas by the district. It just allows for you to be able to do so much, and it allows you to also have things graded automatically for you, with a few things that you may have to grade yourself.
Okay, so parent support, it was huge. It was probably one of the biggest parts of e-learning for me, was making sure my parents felt supported. So here are just some examples that Miranda and I both used. We warning emails to parents, like I said earlier, that was a time where reminders of group times, if Mrs. Our principals came on and had any announcements or anything, we'd add them in there. As well as I like to do tips for parents, because I know for me, I have a soon-to-be second grader and a soon-to-be third grader, and teaching them materials was really hard at home in a different situation. So I feel as though we can keep it consistent within the classroom and at home as much as possible, learning would be easiest. So I came up with a parent accommodation cheat sheet for my parents. And it's just an example. Everyone can do it differently, but it's basically the different accommodations that I use within my classroom to help provide the resources my students needed. So for example, we have environmental, just like find a spot that's quiet, set a timer for breaks, make a set schedule, allow movement breaks. If your child becomes irritated or upset, create a calm down area. And then I gave examples as to how to do that with items that could be included. So basically I made it so that it was parent friendly. Parents could understand it and apply it in their home, in their environment, and it was very similar to what we were doing at school. And so I sent that out. That's actually on my Canvas page, and this was I had a parent survey that I sent home, and this was something the parents loved and used often. So that was definitely something that was suggested. And then as well as, Canvas and all these other resources, allowing us to make the directions clear to parents. So like having a Google Meet parent direction, basically typing out exactly what you're supposed to do, step-by-step instruction, clear as day. So the parents had as the least amount of frustrations with the things that we are asking of them. And then we also get less emails as teachers.
Oops. So another thing was, like Jackie said, that parent contact was huge. So I tried to reach out by phone to each of my families at least once weekly, because they too they were going through all of this with us. And, life was crazy and chaotic, and they were trying to figure things out, and they were overwhelmed. So where Jackie had created that accommodation cheat sheet, I would have those conversations with families on the phone and talk to them about different struggles or difficulties that they were having at home with e-learning, or, even personally with their student, like what could they do for their child to help them? And then, like I'd said previously as well, I created videos on how to get to Google Meet and Canvas. And my parents really enjoyed that because it showed them exactly how to do it. And those were found on my Canvas homepage. And then I also taught my families and my students how to screen share, because some of the materials that we were using, whether it be like IXL or ExactPath or other different, like the Khan Academy, our families were all on different problems. They got different problems. It was the same concept, but it may not have the same answer to it or same question. And so this allowed me to see exactly where the students were, exactly what part of an assignment they didn't understand, and get immediate help when using Google Meets with us.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get ready because we're going to actually show you our Canvas pages. And this is where we're going to show you some of the key things that were used.
Okay, so for my Canvas page, I used the template that the district has provided us, and I made some changes to it a little bit. So like right here is immediately how to access Google Meets and see your teachers. And then I had one for how to get to your work. And then I also had written instructions just in case the videos were bypassed. And then just like Jackie had talked about with those Google Meet instructions, I had it there. My classroom code each day was posted in there for my students and they could get it. I had our daily class schedule, and our principal did live broadcasting of our announcements every morning on Facebook. And so I had that listed, and then we would, as soon as announcements were over, we'd start a community circle. And so sometimes the students would do it online, or they'd jump in on Google Meet and do it with us virtually, or they do both. And then, so like I said about those little file folders, so underneath the modules, my page was set up like this. So on modules, you can see like I had each individual student or grade level broken down. So everyone went in and did attendance and community circle. And so they knew that they had each of these pieces to do each morning. And then when it came down to each class or each student, they knew that they needed to select their grade level. And so with that being said, like they'd have different activities. So like there'd be a math assignment, a reading assignment. We do read alouds and independent reading and different things like that. And then we'd also post in those the specials, because for me being a self-contained teacher, I had to include every aspect of their day into it as well. So they were still getting their specials included in this classroom, because most of my students didn't do the work for the inclusion teachers on their webpage. It was easier for me to monitor and help them with having my own Canvas page. And then, for instance, you know, so some of my students had more work than others. Another group just had social skills because they actually did all of their work on their inclusion teacher's website on their Canvas page. And then some really cool things that we ended up doing as a staff for our students was we created a whole virtual field trip to keep our students engaged. And so we started off just like we would for that day, going over anything and everything related to what we were doing on a field trip. And it gave my students lots of opportunities to show how their learning related to all the subject areas. So we had reading on amusement parks. We learned about how roller coasters work, because we took a virtual trip to Kings Island. So they had real questions based off of all of this concept around taking a field trip. So we had bus safety, we did social skills on rules, and math on elapsed time. So like, for instance, we had a roller coaster elapsed time question. And again, so where I was saying I had my videos posted into each of my assignments, each of my students had a different strategy that they used in class to be able to figure out elapsed time. So I had video reminders of each strategy, and then we had questions. And the great thing about the new quizzes, like I was mentioning, is that you can have students show their learning in multiple ways. So this is one example of a file upload, which basically means that like students could post a picture of their work. So I wanted to see exactly what strategies my students used and how they got to their answer. And so we went through and had them upload photos of their work, which was stated in the directions. And it was real life problems. We used real life times with everything. You're probably wondering why there's Bruceville, Indiana. Well, we found a local at-home roller coaster that someone had built, kind of like Phineas and Ferb, if you're familiar with that cartoon. And so we made it fun and entertaining, and like even had it to where the students could make their own like roller coaster out of things at home. So we had a little mock STEM thing at the end of the week that they could do and send us. And where I was saying about the quizzes, so if you go to quizzes, I'm going to show you how to make a mock quiz. So how to actually use this Canvas quiz tool in case you're not familiar with it, because I loved it, because if you use anything except for like the file upload and the essay responses, it would grade it for you, which was fantastic. All you do is you go to the quizzes section and you hit add quiz, and then it asks you for classic quizzes or new quizzes. So this new quizzes is what I was saying about all the different functionalities. So you click on new quizzes and then you hit submit. And then it's gonna bring you to the assignment. So I'm just gonna title this mock quiz, and then you can assign points for it. And so I always made sure that I assigned points for it so that students could see what they got wrong and if they improved their score, like Jackie was saying how we allowed multiple attempts. But I also had students that were working on accepting feedback and criticism. So I'd always make sure that there were points attached to it so that we could work on that skill together, and they could work on accepting that feedback from me and see the comments on where they may or may not have, like where they went wrong. So if I did a 6-question quiz, I'd make it 6 points. And then you'd scroll down and you can do your assign like to everyone or just individual students, and then hit save. And it's going to bring you to a new window. And that new window is going to bring you to where you can add instructions. So you just click there to type in your instructions and then click done. And then the cool part about this is this little blue plus sign in the middle of the screen. If you click on it, it gives you all these awesome different ways that you can make a quiz. So you have formula, matching, multiple choice, like a numeric answer, true, false, essays. And then there's this fancy little thing called a stimulus. So a stimulus is very similar to just adding in a reading passage. So instead of my students having to go to ReadWorks or create another account on something else, I just made all my quizzes on this. So for instance, we're gonna take a quiz or a Common Lit article and post it into our quiz. So I'm just gonna take the title, copy it, paste it into the title button, and then it asks you like instructions are optional, content. So the content is where you would copy and paste your article. And the great thing about this too is if there are images in between the text, it will copy and paste those images in as well. So they're still getting that resource. So this one, because it's off to the side, it doesn't add it in, but all I do is I go in and I highlight all the way down to the bottom, I copy, and then I can paste it into the box. And it offers you the ability to add a URL too. So if you want the kids to be able to use the URL and go to that website exactly, you can have it pulled right there. Or wait, no, it says not visible to students. I'm sorry. I would post mine in the content box. But then you hit add stimulus. So then it puts it over here just like it did for our reading passages on the CFAs and CSAs and also iLearn. And then you go to attach question and you can pick your question type. So all of them would self-grade, like I said, except for like the essay questions and the file upload. And the file upload also allowed for them to be able to do voice recordings and videos. So that was really cool with some of our assignments that we did as well. Like students would like explain it verbally to us. So if you had a multiple choice question, and like I said, the great thing about Common Lit and Newsy is that it gives you questions off to the side. So it can give you like guiding questions in the passages that you can put in there, or the assessment questions, and it gives you the multiple choice. So again, I just copy and paste that stuff in. And so if I'm putting in the question, I hit copy, I go to my quiz, and then I go to the add question stem, because the question stem is where it's actually going to ask the questions to the student. And then I would go back and copy these in. And really, like, this was the quickest way I found to do this, but it was easier than having to teach them a new resource that they weren't familiar with. And then if it was answer C that was correct, then I'd click answer C. I'm not going to copy and paste all of those in there, but if you only had 3 responses, so if you were limiting response numbers for students as an accommodation, you could go in and click the delete button, and it'll make it 3 answer choices instead of 4. And then you just click done and attach question, and you can upload the points as well. In terms of doing an essay question, the great thing about it is that it gives the students just a text box to do it. And you can make different, like, set word limit, show word count, spell check, different things like that. But you, again, just enter in the question or prompt in that box. So Common Lit, like I said, they had discussion questions, so I could paste this discussion question in there or come up with my own. But it just gave you a great resource that was interactive for the students to use. And Jackie, it's on to you.
Okay.
I gotta stop screen sharing for you though.
Jackie, are you about to share?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead into my Canvas now. So, all right, so if we go into onto the dashboard to my course. So originally I did not actually have being an inclusion teacher, I actually did not have my own course. In the beginning, I was actually going on to every single individual teachers and uploading things to their Canvas pages, and it just got to be a lot. And so finally, I had tech support make me my own Canvas page, which then made it really easy. So just like I used just a lot of the same things that Miranda used, but to kind of add on some of the things that I used within. So like I said, I put everything that my parents or kids would need. So here's the parent accommodation sheet that was on there. So my parents could just click on there and get that. I would upload fun little activities. This one here is just a time capsule that the kids could fill out. It's not even something they had to do, but just something that they might want to keep and, share for later when they're older. And then this is where I put each group that I was working with. And instead of having like a pop-up session where I was helping with just the materials, either that was inclusion or with like a specific group, I did it so that my groups were set up based off of the time. So each group had a section, as you can see. I'll scroll down, you can see reading fluency, there was math word problems, there's multiplication. And so each group had their own time and their own space, and they had their own calendar. And then within this, part of the beginning part of my getting parents familiar with everything was letting them know what groups their child would be a part of. So that was all based off of their IEP goals. And so I just did it. So every Monday and Wednesday, I did my Google Meets, which is where we were doing our small group instruction with the materials that you saw earlier. I used a lot. Those materials were huge during that time. And so I had it all on here. And then every Tuesday and Thursday, I would post assignments based off of the things that was today. My students were inclusion, so they were also expected to do classroom materials and not just the work that I provided. So my materials in my sessions weren't as intense. I just wanted them to keep going with the goal practice that we were working on. I would always have announcements. I ended up having like a Google party and stuff like that. So that was underneath each of the different sessions so that each session would know what was going on. This is where I also uploaded the videos. So if you look here, this is just an example. So there I am teaching a lesson about, I don't even remember what this was about. What is it? Something, I don't even remember what exactly this was, but there I am in my Google Meets sharing my information. And the huge thing that I found that was really helpful with being able to record all of my lessons was that the parents that couldn't make the times that were given, they were then able to go on and see the entire lesson and do it on their own time. So along with that, all the materials that were needed for that week were listed underneath. So it was cause and effect. Apparently, that was cause and effect. So then you would have all the materials that you would need. Right here, you can see small group. There's a small group book that I had put on there. Then this is the, for some of the things, I would put the teacher guides on there so the parents would be able to look through it if they were wanting to help with their child. Charts, resources to go along with whatever the concept was. And so each section had that. Reading fluency group, everything underneath of it were things that we were using to help support what was being taught. Some kids were one-on-one or LLI, but it was all in one spot, and it was in a space that the students were familiar with. And that was just on top of what Miranda did as well. I used all of the resources that were discussed as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. All right, Miranda, take it away. Oh, okay. So we just threw a lot at you. I'm sure you were familiar with a lot of these things as well. But do we have any questions or comments or things that you would like us to maybe talk further about? Right now would be a perfect time to do it.
Or if anyone has something they did that they think others would want to know about, feel free to share, please.
Yeah, show us your Canvas page and show us how it worked well for you. We would all love to learn as much as possible.
And screen sharing is open if someone needs to show something.
I can stop sharing so that someone can if they need to.
Anyone? No? Anyone questions? Anything?
Anyone want us to review anything or show you something explicitly how to do?
Huh?
Hey Jackie, it's Shanice. I do have a question for you. I actually really liked your Canvas. I didn't make one because I was in other classrooms. So is it possible for you to share your Canvas with me so I can kind of review it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what is your, what is your email?
It's sjohns, Johns.
Okay. So yeah, I'll definitely put you as a person that can view my Canvas.
Thank you.
Get an invite. So yeah, I'll definitely do that. Anyone else? So what we have a slide with our contact information. If there's anything that you guys are interested in knowing more about, or if you just want to like kind of do it on your own times, please feel free. Our emails are listed below. We're more than happy to help. no means have we perfected anything, but these are just the things that we felt were tools for you to use that could be helpful.
If you guys send me this presentation, I will post it to the PD document where all this was. And also this has been recorded. So once it loads, we'll put the link for that there as well in case anybody needs to go back to it.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that we send it to you.
Thanks. And if nobody has any other questions, thank you very much. And if you have other questions, feel free to ask them. If not, we appreciate you guys taking time today. Thank you. And Jackie and Miranda, great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.